There are 10 teams around the NFL that are currently sitting at 0 and 2. So on today's episode, we're going to talk about which 0 and 2 team around the NFL is best suited for a turnaround. And then we got a game tonight versus the Buffalo Bills and the Miami Dolphins. So we're going to also talk about that. But before we talk about that, y'all already know you got to hear the music first.
Welcome to your number one spot for all NFL news and content, NFL Central.
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back into another episode of NFL Central, your number one spot for everything NFL. I'm your host here, Bobby, and I'm holding it down on another episode. So if you're tuned in, man, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Now, we have 10 teams around the NFL that are currently sitting at 0 and 2, and it's not looking good for a number of teams, but some teams on the list could potentially turn things around and give themselves an opportunity to go out there and potentially make the playoffs and possibly go on a run. So the 10 teams, just for everybody that's wondering who they are, we have the Chiefs, Texans, Saints, Giants, Titans, Jets, Panthers, Browns, and the Dolphins. Now, we can just go ahead and get rid of the Saints. I don't necessarily believe they are absolutely good enough. I think they're deficient of talent. And their matchup coming up this week, they're going to face the Seattle Seahawks, who's really, really good on offense, who should be 2 and 0 right now, but sit at 1 and 1. And I just don't think the Saints can compete well enough versus that Seahawks defense. So we're going to get rid of them. The Titans, they're going to face off versus the Colts this week. And I think that while Cam Ward has been very, very impressive, we can go ahead and get rid of them too, because they're going to face a Colts team with Daniel Jones, who has been on a heater, completing 71% of his passes and has 111 passer rate right now, and has been looking really, really good for this Colts team down in the AFC South. Now, when we talk about the Panthers, now that's a team that still could possibly go out there and find themselves a win this week. So when it comes down to that and them facing the Atlanta Falcons, it is a divisional matchup, and we know that those games can kind of go either way. So I'm not going to necessarily count them out, but they're going to have to put it on wax for me to believe that they can turn this thing around. Didn't have a great 2 weeks of the season thus far. So we'll just kind of just wait and see what that looks like. Now, when we talk about the Browns, that defense is for real. The problem is that offense still has some things that they have to work through. Joe Flacco has not looked particularly well. The running game is starting to get going, so maybe that's some saving grace. But the biggest challenge for the Cleveland Browns this week is that they face off versus the Green Bay Packers. So I'm looking at it. I ain't even going to hold you. The Browns might be looking at 0 and 3, and they might have to be getting ready to switch into what we call a quarterback change if the offense does not look better in this next matchup. When we talk about the Chicago Bears, horrible 2 weeks. The first week against the Minnesota Vikings, the Chicago Bears let the Minnesota Vikings score 21 points in the fourth quarter, and then came out last week versus a divisional matchup versus the Detroit Lions and got 52 points put on their head. Now they face a Dallas Cowboys team, and the Dallas Cowboys sit at 1 and 1, and they honestly could have been 2 and 0 possibly if they would have had CeeDee Lamb catch more passes in their first week matchup versus the Philadelphia Eagles. But when it comes down to this matchup with the Bears and the Cowboys, I'm not even going to hold you. I don't trust the Chicago Bears defense, especially the defensive backs, and especially that pass rush. It was non-existent last week, and the Detroit Lions really, really exposed that defense. And I don't necessarily know if they're going to come to play versus the Dallas Cowboys, especially now that the head coach and Ben Johnson over there in Chicago is calling out players in their practice habits and not having that championship pedigree necessary to go out there and win football games. I know the Cowboys defense is a big question mark when it comes to how can they win games. But one thing we do know, and one thing that I trust a little bit more than the Chicago Bears offense, is that the Cowboys offense can put up points with anybody. That's one thing I do know. Dak Prescott, he's healthy. He's looking really damn good. He's going to get CeeDee Lamb involved. He's going to get George Pickens involved. I think the Chicago Bears, you probably had to cross them off the list as well. And they are staring down the barrel of 0-3. And hey, y'all know where I stand. Y'all know where my fandom lies. But hey, as an NFL fan, as a football fan, I got to keep it real. It ain't looking too good for the Chicago Bears to turn this season around. So I might as well just chalk them up to the game too. For the Jets, hey, they going against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who I believe is going to be a threat in the NFC as a whole. And I don't necessarily know if Tyrod Taylor can go out there and win a football game versus the Tampa Bay Bucks, but it's interesting. But I'm going to cross them up too. And then so the only that leaves us with only two teams, bro, who I believe is best suited for the turnaround. The first team is the Kansas City Chiefs. Kansas City Chiefs, I can't count them out until they're all the way done. That's just me. I can't count them out until they're all the way done. Now they're going to go against a Giants team on Sunday Night Football, and it's going to be a very good game in my personal opinion. I think that the defensive line of the New York Giants is one that is going to turn around and really, really put on. It was one of those picks that I had as like a dark horse choice for a defensive line to go out there and do a number of great things, or simply put themselves up as being one of the best around the league. But there has been some rumors coming out of the Giants camp, or at least surrounding the camp, not necessarily from the Giants, that there are some players in there that is not happy with the direction of the team. So we'll see how that affects them on Sunday. And plus, I'm going to go with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid in that game to say, hey, these guys are going to be able to turn it around. What makes me pause for a minute, though, when talking about the Kansas City Chiefs, and I said it on previous episodes, though, is that the Kansas City Chiefs, their running backs, they're not good enough. The wide receiver core, it's not good enough. So it does leave me in a position to where I'm like, I don't necessarily know. However, if we going off a Giants team that I don't know about versus the Kansas City Chiefs team I don't know about, who I have as the victor is the Kansas City Chiefs. And I think that Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes can somehow, some way figure out some things to turn their city around more so than looking at the Giants or some of the other teams previously mentioned. The other team that I'm going to say that's 0-2 right now that can turn it around for sure is the Houston Texans. Now, don't get me wrong. CJ Stroud, he has to be better, bro. He just simply has to be better. CJ Stroud has not been the best version of himself. He honestly has been a bit mid in my personal opinion. But the good thing is for CJ Stroud, he's completed 62% of his passes, but he only has one touchdown, one interception on the season. That's not good enough. The offensive line is still a question mark for the Texans, and we still trying to figure out how is the offense going to look? What's the identity? Nick Chubb has filled in, and a number of wideouts have filled in, Nico Collins and a couple other players as well. And one thing that I will add on to say that's the saving grace for the Houston Texans is that defense. That defense is for real. So if CJ Stroud get his stuff together, the Texans defense will help them turn this thing around. Plus, I think they have an easier path than some of the other teams who still need a lot of work when it comes to roster construction when building these things up. So when it comes to the 10 teams, the only two teams that I have that has a 0-2 record that I believe can turn around is the Kansas City Chiefs, simply based on Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid believing that they can somehow turn it around, but it might be over with. We'll see once it's all said and done. And then the Houston Texans, because I believe their defense is real. The offense has weapons. It's just that the quarterback position in Houston needs to be better. So we'll just omit all of that. Now, before we get up out of here, we got to talk about tonight's game versus the Buffalo Bills and the Miami Dolphins. The Miami Dolphins and the Buffalo Bills face off on a Thursday night football game to where we're looking at a situation to where the Miami Dolphins could be 0-3 and the Buffalo Bills can get another win and look like they're going to be marching on as one of the best teams around the NFL. Now, there's still going to be a lot of determining factors that we're going to have to come to when it comes to saying, hey, are the Buffalo Bills actually at the top of the AFC? We shall see. We have a lot of football left. But what gives me confidence, at least in this matchup, versus the Miami Dolphins is that the Buffalo Bills have beaten them in every single game that they played against the Miami Dolphins since 2022. Yes, you heard that correctly. The Miami Dolphins have not beaten the Buffalo Bills since 2022. Why would I believe that the Miami Dolphins can beat the Buffalo Bills tonight? I just don't. That's just me. I just don't. The offense, look, they seem like they still got weapons. They still have Tua. You still have Mike McDaniels, but I don't think it's good enough. The defense is okay, you know what I mean? But I just think that the Buffalo Bills are just better. That's just it. I think that they understand what's at stake for this game. This is a divisional game, and I understand, and I feel like the Buffalo Bills are on a different type of level right now. After going out there and having that comeback win versus the Baltimore Ravens, they came out and smacked the Jets around, literally smacked them around. And now I think they about to go out there and smack these Dolphins around, regardless of what many believe or how much the Dolphins are having player meetings or talking and discussing different things. I just don't see it. I don't see the Miami Dolphins having a chance of winning this game. That's just me personally. Obviously, football games have to be played. We have to see what transpires. And they said football game calls can go in the opposite direction or be in favor of a certain team. Players can make certain plays. Teams can get off to a hot start. But even if the Dolphins go up by, say, 2 touchdowns in the first half and he come out in the second half, I still got my money on Josh Allen to go out there and finish the game. Regardless of how it all shapes out. I think that the Buffalo Bills defense is better. I believe that the offense is better. Keon Coleman has been coming on along well in his second season as an NFL wide receiver. And I just think Josh Allen is on another level. And I think that Josh Allen might be crossing that line to say, hey, I'm about to go get me a championship, especially with all the question marks surrounding the Kansas City Chiefs. Josh Allen might be looking to go ahead and cross and punch himself into the Super Bowl this season. It is still early, but I think that Josh Allen is playing on a whole nother level than what we've seen in years past. I think that he's been able to slow down on all the hits that he's been taking. He's been trusting his teammates a little bit more. And when it's time to go to holler at Lois Lane and grab that cape, bro, able to go out there and turn into Superman. So I don't think the Dolphins have a shot this game tonight. And I think that we'll be looking at the Dolphins at 0-3, while the Buffalo Bills will be 3-0 and looking like one of the best teams in the NFL, even though some people are going to glaze some other teams. But I think that the Buffalo Bills, they will be taking this game tonight. But hey, that is it for me today, y'all. I appreciate y'all for tuning in to another episode of NFL Central, your number one spot for everything NFL. Make sure you go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. We appreciate y'all. Make sure y'all always love football, and y'all already know I'm going to catch y'all on the next one for sure.
This has been a presentation